Hey, when did y'all get here? What's going on? Got a little something for you today. But you know who it is. It's your boy, Big Tank Hank, coming at you with Wild About Herps. Yes, sir, it's something new. Something new, and I'm very excited about it. And I have to repeat and preface to my fish people. I haven't forgot about y'all. The 22nd, I will be going live again. My work schedule is throwing things off. And for those that catch this stream, this is a pre-recording. So when y'all come into the chat, we won't be responding because it's a pre-recording. We're not ignoring anybody because that's not what I do. But the 22nd, we will be back live again. On this episode of Big Tank Hank's Wild About Herps, we got Seth of HUff's Herps. He's coming in here, y'all, with some fire exotic geckos. Happen to be my favorite African fat tail geckos. And yes, I think I'm gonna make a ride down to San Antonio, me and the wife. I got to get me one. But see, I'm gonna bring him up, introduce him to y'all, let him tell you a little bit about himself, his space in the hobby, family, desires, drives, and what he's got going on in his reptile room. Wow. Seth, what's going on?
What's up, Hank? How's it going,
Oh
man?
man, I'm chilling. I'm chilling. How you feeling?
Doing good, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad for you to be here, man. Glad for you to be here. Hey y'all, this is Seth right here. Hubs Herps. He's got some real good stuff for you. Got some real good stuff for you. Man, give him a little breakdown, a little introduction, because only you can tell him about you. You can do it way better than me.
All right. So my name's Seth. I'm at Huff's Herps, obviously. We specialize in breeding of high-end fat-tail geckos, leopard geckos, and gargoyle geckos. Um, I started out with reptiles as far back as I can remember. Probably 8 years old, living in central Oklahoma. Box turtles was definitely my first love with reptiles. When we were driving around every spring when the box turtles would start coming out, my mom would have a cardboard box in the car, in the van, to where whenever she would see them, she'd stop and grab them. And, I had some kiddie pools in the backyard that were like half full of dirt and water feet, little water bowls and stuff, and a whole little ecosystem in each one. And so we would collect turtles all spring and summer, and I'd keep them all year. And then in the fall, as soon as it started getting cold, I'd let them go. And we had a big horse pasture. I'd let them go in the horse pasture, and they'd go off to do their brumation. Thankfully, because I know I wasn't taking good care of them. Looking back now, I thought I was doing good by them, but looking back now, they were eating mostly tomatoes and whatever grubs I could find around the yard. So the grubs, I guess, was good for them, but the tomatoes, I know, wasn't any good for them. They weren't getting any supplementation for sure. But I guess I did give them some dandelions, so that was probably the best part of what they got from me. But they would end up, getting released every year and go on, and that was definitely my first love for reptiles and my first passion. And I've always had a box turtle since then, and still have a pair of box turtles in my backyard today. Uh, that I can't think of a time in my life that I didn't have a box turtle. They're just so friendly and docile and just really cool little creatures. They're very intelligent for a turtle. I think like they have a personality. But anyway, moving on down the road, I ended up working at a pet store when I was in high school. I was the reptile guy there. I took care of two different stores, all of their reptiles enclosures at both stores. I would bounce back and forth. One of them was a mall store, and so I spent most of my time there, retail wise, and then I would go take care of the reptile section at the big store they had. But I've got two ball pythons in my collection. That one of them I've had since I was 14, so she's now 24 years old. I can't hear you.
No, I was saying that's
There you go.
crazy. I muted the mic. I didn't want my fish tank pumps to overshadow you
Oh
talking.
no, they all good, man. That's a good little background. I moved the crickets out of here so we weren't hearing chirping the whole time. Yeah, we're that snake I got when I was 14. I still have her. She's rocking and rolling, healthy as can be. I feed her one rat every 6 to 8 weeks because she's so big and fat, and just doesn't really need more than that. And then she doesn't even eat most of the winter. She'll go off food for about 4 or 5 months every year. She really only eats about 6 months out of the year, to be honest. And that's by her choosing. You know, I'll offer it to her, and she's just like, nope, she don't need it. But she's healthy as can be. And then I've got, let's see, other than that, we've got a white tree frog and a lot of geckos.
Right.
I did breed leopard geckos a little bit back whenever I was working at the pet shop, back when I was like 18. And I actually hatched a single gecko back then. And then whenever I got in the oil field when I was 20, I got rid of everything but the snakes. And because they were so low maintenance, I was able to take care of them just whenever I was home here and there. But I got out of geckos completely for years and years. And then when my boys, I have twin boys, they're now 13. And whenever they were probably, let's see, it was 2013 when we got them, when we got the geckos for them. So where are we at now? 22, so 9 years ago. So when my boys were 4 or 5, we bought a trio of leopard geckos because at that point they were able to kind of start helping take care of something. So when I was away, they were able to kind of fill the gap and take care of the bugs and stuff that Mama didn't want to mess with. So that's when we got back into leopard geckos. I just got a trio of pet quality stuff from PetSmart and paired it unknowingly that was frowned upon in the community because Petco animals are basically like going to the pound and getting a pup. You don't know what it's got genetically, and genetics matter in the gecko community because there are a lot of recessives that don't go well with each other or don't work with each other at all. So you want to know what's in the animals you're working with. So anyway, we worked with those. We paired those the first year. I produced something cool and kind of piqued my interest, or I thought it was cool. It turned out to just be run of the mill nothing. It was a blizzard morph, which is just a recessive in leopard gecko genetics. So I got to looking into it a little more at that time and realized that there was a lot more to the gecko game than I realized, and there was a whole, upper tier, several tiers of quality in the geckos. So that piqued my interest even more. I started looking into the genetics and the different morphs and stuff like that, and decided I wanted to get into them, on somewhat of a, professional level, but totally as a hobby. It was just something to do with my boys, just something for us to mess with. So we purchased a couple of leopard gecko morphs at the first expo we went to, and then the next expo we went to, one of my boys kind of keyed in on a African fat tail gecko because it had a blue part of its tail was like blue, straight up blue, and he loved the color blue, and so he wanted that gecko. And at first I was like, buddy, we're working with leopard geckos. I don't know anything about fat tail geckos, which I knew a little bit about them. We had them at the pet store when I worked there, but it wasn't what I had been researching. I had been researching. Once I decided I wanted to go ahead and invest in leopard geckos a little bit, I had done a lot of research on them, and I hadn't done hardly any research on the fat tails. So at first I was like, I don't know. And then that night, we were doing the whole weekend at the expo. So that night at the hotel, I did, this day and age, we can do quick research overnight. So I did a bunch of research on them and realized that they weren't all that much different than the leopard geckos to care for. And so I decided the next day at the expo to go ahead and pull the trigger, and we got a trio of African fat tail geckos. And that was the beginning of the end, dude, because we fell in love head over heels with them. And at this point, our collection is about 75% fat tails, 25% Leos. They're just definitely our go-to species. So since probably 2016, 2017, whenever I started producing a decent amount. And keep in mind, I was in the oil field for all these years. So I was away for long periods of time. So I had to enlist my boys' help on certain things that were required more daily maintenance, So they've been very much involved in my whole operation from pretty much the beginning. Obviously from the beginning because, the trio was originally for them that we got. But what I ended up started doing is paying them because I don't believe in just a free allowance for just being a kid. I believe you have to earn what you get and work for what you get, as I'm sure you do.
Yes.
So I started paying them just like, I don't remember what it started out, like $3 a week per kid or whatever to do whatever I had them doing, spray down the geckos every morning is what it started out doing. Spray each baby gecko every morning, and they would share that duty. And so that blossomed into them actually having racks of babies that they're responsible for of my geckos. So at this point, they basically raised my babies for me, from the egg to basically not quite to market, but damn near to market. Once the gecko is about 2 months old, then they end up on my rack because we just have kind of a assembly line system, if you will. So our youngest babies are always on the same rack. That way we know the highest priority is that rack because that's our youngest babies. If we get back from out of town for a couple days, bam, let's go straight to that rack and take care of those babies first, and then move on to the rest of the collection. So because of that, we're able to have it to where each of them are responsible for certain racks so that they are held accountable for those animals. There's no question of, oh, well, who did this baby last? If something comes up and it's not being done right, which doesn't happen anymore. There's been some bumps along the road and some, learning curve, but at first I was very much involved in it. And now it's a matter of me, like, once a month or so going through a rack and just kind of doing it myself and making sure that everything's dialed in. And it always is these days that they're some little gecko kings, man. So they saved up their money that I was paying them for working on my geckos. And, they're at the expos with me all the time and seeing these other species that people are working with. And, they're tired of my geckos. They didn't want to do anything with the species that I work with. So they ended up investing in gargoyle geckos. That's what they decided they wanted to work with. And I bought their very first one. It was, I guess, 4 years ago. I bought their first male. And ever since that one, all the rest of the geckos in their collection, they've bought and paid for with their own money and raised up on their own from babies. And at this point, they've got a 2.4 group of adults that are steady producing. I think right now they've got about 25 babies on the ground in-house. They've sold a handful at this point, 4 or 5 at expos. They're the most balling little 13-year-olds you've ever met, I'll tell you that. The other day,
That's respect,
man.
Man.
The other day, their TV went out in the loft, and right now I'm trying to get this business up and going, and I'll get back to that how that transpired in a minute, but the other times are tough right now. And the other day, their TV went out in the loft, and I was like, well, I don't know what to tell y'all guys. I can't afford, go and get a new TV right this second. They're like, well, between the two of us, we can afford it. Can you take us to Walmart? I'm like, hey, I ain't gonna argue with that, dude. If y'all want to spend your money on entertainment, that's fine with me. I could get you one eventually, but it ain't gonna be right now. They were like, no, we want one right now. We're gonna go do it. All right, let's go. And all the way to the point that while we were there, I was like, all right, these are your options. You got, this is what you had, or you can spend $50 more and upgrade a little bit, and they ended up upgrading a little bit and getting a little bit bigger TV for their little game area. So
okay,
and they'll come to me, hey, Dad, can I spend $30 on this PlayStation game? Yeah, that's your money. So that's blossomed into a lot more than I ever expected. And like I've told people before, if tomorrow I had to get rid of everything and got out of the reptiles completely, which isn't going to happen, but if that were the case, hypothetically, and all I've gotten out of it to this point is what they've gotten out of it, as far as dealing with people, dealing with animals, dealing with life and death and birds and bees and all that, it would be worth it to me. You know,
Gotcha.
That's how much I feel like we've gotten out of this hobby as far as the children go. But as far as back to this being a business for us now, I was in the oil field, as I mentioned, for years and years. And when 2020 happened and the whole world shut down, basically, the oil field did as well, once again, which it always does every time anything happens. And so whenever we were sitting there, my wife was currently substitute teaching whenever the pandemic started. So she was also without pay immediately because she wasn't the full-time teachers that stayed on salary during that time. So we're sitting at the kitchen table and she's like, "What are we going to do, Seth?" And I said, "Well, I've been investing in this backup plan upstairs for about the last 4 years. Backup plan activated. Let's do this, you know?" And so I started putting all of my time and energy into producing as much feeders as I could produce and producing and holding back as many high-end, fat tails and some leopard geckos that I could. And really working towards a more productive and business-like goal with this, because it's always been just a hobby. And I always wanted to keep it that way. But then the situation kind of presented itself that I realized it was an opportunity for me to make it more than that without having to risk a whole heck of a lot, because I already was being forced to spend the time, you know what I mean, with the whole 2020. So I just went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. And here we are now. And at this point, it's definitely looking like everything's going to work out. I don't think I'm going to have to go back to the oil field. My dad asked me that the other day because he's itching for me to go back to the oil field because that's all he's ever done. And he just doesn't understand not doing that, And I was like, Dad, I absolutely don't expect to and hope not to, I think that part of my life's behind me. I'm glad for it and where it got me in life, but it was also a huge sacrifice being away from my family that much. Yeah. It's a lifestyle, and so it's not for everybody, and it's not for everybody for all their life. And for me, that's the case. It suited me fine, but now that my boys are the age that they are, I feel like it's much more valuable for me to be here with them and helping raise them. Because when you're in the oil field, I mean, your wife's basically a single mom for half the year at least. And then the type of oil field work that I did, it was more like 9 months out of the year that you're gone. So it's just, like I said, it's a lifestyle. I'm glad to be done with it. I'm glad to be moved on. And here we are. I'm glad to be working with these beautiful, beautiful animals that just have me in awe every day. Earlier, I was getting some stuff ready for this to be able to show off some animals, and I had some of my favorite geckos cupped up right here on the table, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're so pretty, especially all together."
And knowing that you did it.
Yeah. Most of them I produced myself. Several of them were purchased, but it's humbling to work with these animals for sure. For sure.
Most definitely. I'm so glad.
A lot of fun.
So glad for you, man. That I work in a prison now, and I don't really love it, but it is what it is. But I do get to come home. I had a scenario where I could have been in Afghanistan, Iraq, like working basically on like armed force bases, and I would have been gone for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe even 12.
I can't imagine, dude. I can't imagine.
Yeah, my household is not built like that.
Right.
There was no way I was going. The money, oh my God, the money was like, it's life changing, but yeah, not all money is
it though.
Not all money is good money.
Sacrifices.
Yeah, not all money is good money, man. I had an image of sitting Christmas. I'm an old man, right? Christmas by the fireplace, grandkids and stuff, and having one of my kids tell me, well, Dad, when this happened or that happened, you weren't there. I didn't want to hear that.
Yep.
So I was like,
Yep.
yeah, no, I don't think I'm going. But man, these
Time or
fat
money.
tail
It's hard to
geckos.
have both.
Yes. Yes. No, no, no. Most definitely. Most
It's
definitely.
hard to have both.
Most definitely. Either way it go, you giving up one of them.
Yep.
Either way it go. And African fat tail geckos are my favorite.
I
And
love
to
them.
some people, they just at a glimpse, they don't know that there's a difference. But I'm here to tell you that there is a
Mostly in
difference.
personality. Mostly in personality. They are hands down just polar opposites in personality. Leopard gecko babies are real flighty and just kind of all over the place, no matter how much you handle them. And fat tails are out the egg, just kind of just like real slow moving sloths almost. They can move fast, but they choose not to most of the time.
Like that
You
one
see
back there
this?
on the back of your neck that's saying, hey,
Yeah,
I'm
you see him
good.
just hiding back there.
Yeah, I'm
I wear
good.
him
I
at
ain't
the
got to go nowhere.
expos. I wear him at the expos all the time, and that's the same thing he does at the expos. He hides back there. He's one of my
That's,
favorite guys. He's actually one that'll beg to come out and hang out. Because that's the thing about fat tails is they're a little more reclusive than Leos. They're not as eager to come out. Most of them won't beg to come out. Whereas, Leos will commonly do that. Leos and bearded dragons, that's not uncommon for them to do. But once you get them out, they're just totally chill. They're down to just hang out. Whereas leopard geckos are a little more explorative, is what I tell people. Leopard
gotcha.
geckos are going to want to go crawl around and find somewhere else to hide. Whereas fat tails, will just chill. They'll fall
Gotcha.
asleep in your hand. I'll hand them to people at expo, and the gecko just curl up in their palm and literally close their eyes and fall asleep, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to have this." They sell themselves pretty much.
What made you, because beforehand, maybe not, but I know after your boys decided what they were going to do, you had a chance to weigh gargoyles and African fat tails. How did you stay where you were compared to going over to the gargoyle side?
Um, Honestly, other than wanting to let them have their own thing, that alone was itself. Um, the gargoyles and cresties never really appealed to me all that much personally, and I really believe in working with what you like, and working with what appeals to you, and not just like a lot of people that get into leopard geckos or fat tail geckos, they'll get on the groups and be like, well, what sells the best? And I always tell people the same thing that I was told whenever I first got into leopard geckos is work with what you like looking at.
What you like? Because people are going to
Because
buy what they like regardless.
if you're passionate about something, it's going to bleed and people are going to read it and people are going to be passionate about it as well.
Yeah.
Right, buddy? But if you buy stuff just to appeal to the market, and then let's say the market changes, because it does, it's cyclical and it has different rotating a lot of moving parts to it. If it changes and you end up with a handful of these animals on your hands that you can't necessarily get rid of,
And
do
you
you want
don't
to have
like them.
something that you like looking at, or do you want to have
Yeah.
something that you're not really all that fond of? You just did just because it was the thing to do. You know what I mean? So that's what I always tell people, and that's what I've stuck to. And that's kind of why I'm so into the fat tails, is just because their personality just blew me away. It
And that's
really,
not
really did.
all. That's not all, because I asked that question because gargoyle geckos, yes, that's what they look like. Fat tails are just cute, man. I mean,
Yeah.
and leopards, I mean, yeah, comparison, they're very close.
Yeah.
But being that I wasn't into them like that, for Africans to stick out for me, there had to be something. I never held them. I've never been in person with them.
But
I've just seen them.
just seeing them move around, you can just see.
There was a difference. There was a difference for me.
Yeah.
There was a difference for me. And with the gargoyles, I didn't want the
Wait
little
till you
nub,
hold one, dude.
the
Once you got
little
one in your
nub
hands,
butts.
you're gonna be hooked. You're gonna be. I've seen so many people get so hooked. People that walked into an expo and had no intentions of buying anything. Like walk up to my table and like, oh no, I hate reptiles. I'm just here for her. You know, I'm just here with him. I'm just here with him, you know, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, cool. You want to hold something while you're here? Yeah, sure, why not? And you put it in their hands and they're just like, wow, that's really soft. Well, he's curling up. He just closed his eyes. And they'll look at me and be like, what's he doing? He's going to sleep. He likes you. And they're just like, I need one of these. You know, it's hilarious. I love watching it happen. Every time it takes place. And that's really how it happened with us. Like we had both. And like I said, especially with the boys being really involved with everything, they preferred the fat tails because of their calmer demeanor. They were nervous about let something escape and disappointing me. And so it was something they asked for to work more with the fat tails than the leopard geckos. And I personally preferred them as well. It was really a group decision in, you know, all of our parts. Gotcha. And here we are. Now we've got a lot of geckos, and our collection is probably about 75% fatties and 25% leopard geckos.
Okay, that's cool. Very cool. Very cool. Man, I got into terrariums maybe 7 or 8 months ago now. Jumped into it too fast, but I got one left. The first terrarium that I bought, 12 by 12 by 12, Exoterra with a red-eyed tree frog in it. And it's thriving.
Like bioactive setups?
Yes. It's thriving. Now, I built that one. Then I did 2 20-gallon long tanks. Man, the gnats took over, mold, just crazy, right? Now, the first one that I put together, because, you know, when you first start looking into it, when you first do it, you do it right.
Yeah.
And then you just take off, right? I broke down this tank right there. It's got fish in it. It was a terrarium. That one was a terrarium.
You gave up?
My red-eyed tree frog is still kicking over there. So basically, my next one is going to probably still be one based on like that Exoterra type of style.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked into, beyond that, I looked into leopards. I was at Petco and I was like, man, I really like these leopards, man. They got these crazy colors, blah, blah, blah. Didn't pull the trigger, which was good. And look around.
Don't buy no Gecko animals. They get their stuff from mass producers.
Man,
like
I bought like some dart frogs from them and had a guy talk crazy to me.
I've done it. Everybody's done it. Everybody's done it.
And they died. The guy told me what was gonna happen, and it happened. I hate the way he told me. He could have been more, you know, compassionate because I was new.
Right.
But everything he said happened, and that was crazy, man. But I just backed out of those tanks, got rid of all my gnats. That first tank, no gnats. Never had a gnat issue. My springtails and my isopods, everything is going good. That tank is just thriving. But after I backed out of everything else, and I found the African fat tails, I was like, man, you know, this is gonna be my next one. It's gonna have to be. And I'll probably still end up using one of these 20-gallon longs, but I was like, this is gonna have to be.
20-gallon long is perfect for him.
And hey, y'all, I ran across
HUff's Herps. Bio too, Hank, because that's what my boys do all of their gargoyle adults in is bio. So we've got that down pretty good.
Okay.
If you have your bugs, it's all about the bugs. If you got your bug populations right, it'll thrive.
Gotcha. Really I was thinking, look, I was trying to plant. Oh, it's beautiful. Look at these plants. Look at them. Yeah. Going crazy, crashing, gnats everywhere. Oh my God. What is this? They done moved from way back in the back of the house all the way to the front of the house. You know, yeah, I had to shut it down like that, but no. And then look, and I ran across you, and then just so happened that people, when I found him on Instagram, I didn't know that he specialized per se in the African fat tails. Had no idea. I'm like, hey man, I'm looking at these pictures, pretty interesting. Let me get him on here, see what he got going on. Then he told me the first time I talked to him, I'm like, man, you know, hey, that's ironic.
We like our fat tails for sure.
So I said, that's where, you know, I'm gonna have to get my first one from. Now, y'all, I got something that I'm gonna try to do 30 minutes in called show and tell. We at 29:38 right now on the live countdown right there. We're gonna see what kind of morphs he's got over there that he's done himself and some purchases. But let the people see the exoticness that is African fat tail.
Let's do it. Look, dude's right here, waiting to check everybody out. He wants to keep everybody in line. His name's Dude because he's so damn cool. All right, I'm gonna get this camera flipped around, and we'll see what we can do. All right. All right, check out our shirt first, Hank. That's pretty cool, huh? All right, got a little bit of everything to show y'all. First, I got a couple leopard geckos just because that's our first passion. This is one of my favorite ones I produced last year. That's a white and yellow bell albino leopard gecko with some crazy colors and patterns going on. And this is one of my favorite bold stripes that I've ever hatched. She's as good as it gets on that morph right there. That's a bold stripe leopard gecko. And then I got one of the boys geckos to show y'all. And then we'll get on to the fat tails. I'm going to open him up. Hopefully he doesn't come flying out of here. Look at how crazy that color is. Is that insane or what? All right, so that's the Leos and the gargoyles. Now, let's see. I got some normals here to show you. A couple different variations of the normals. So this guy is actually wild caught. So this is truly what they look like in the wild. That's as normal as it gets.
And still off the hook.
Still beautiful, right?
Yep.
And then these are a couple of newer. This is a pairing that I had this year that are normals, but they're just really cool looking normals. They're real light background with some marbling going on. Pretty neat little project potential there. And then this girl is what you would call a zero.
And why is she called a zero?
Because her bands are connected. You see how she's got just this big zero looking. She got zero banding, basically, is why they named it that way, I think, to my understanding.
Oh, meaning going around her body could possibly be breaking that stripe that's down the back.
Right. Yeah. If she didn't have that stripe right there, you see how this one, has two bands, one on the shoulder and one on the hips. Gotcha. The zeros, the bands are just connected, so you have just solid dark over the whole body. It's just one of the morphs. Then this one is also, so this is what's called a stinger. So it's similar because the bands are connected on the sides right here.
Man, but the color's so crisp.
Yeah. This one's got a real cool tang accent to it. And then this is one of my favorite, just Tangerine Normals. This is a normal, but she's super tangy.
Ooh-wee. Yes.
Her name's Sunkissed. All right, now we're going to move on to some of the morphs. So we're going to start with some of the base morphs. This is just an Oreo, which is a recessive.
So you saying it gets better?
Oh, yeah, baby. We're just getting started. This is an Oreo, which is a recessive, simple recessive. Then we've got Patternless. Now, this girl actually has a regrown tail, and it's a really neat regrown tail. It looks just like her head. Check that out, Hank.
Okay, question. Does gargoyles, do they grow their tail back ever?
Yes, gargoyles do. Crusties don't.
Okay. Okay.
That's a patternless morph right there. So basically, the bands just kind of consume the whole body. The darker color consumes the whole body.
Gotcha.
So you end up with a patternless effect. This is a striped patternless. Pretty sharp looking with that white stripe in there.
Yes, very much so.
Now, okay, so you had an Oreo and a patternless. Now this is a striped Oreo patternless combo. That's pretty clean, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Now, let me grab this guy. This is another recessive, simple recessive. This is an amelanistic, or amel for short. I can get it open. So pretty,
Man.
huh?
Ooh, hold on, let me.
So bright. His name is Neon. And then when you mix the amel and the patty together,
Neon Dion.
the amel and the patty together creates an amel patty combo, which is a solid orange fat tail.
That's amelanistic and patternless.
Yes, sir.
All right, all right.
Double recessive, and used to be thought impossible to create years ago just because they were having trouble initially combining them, but obviously that's a thing of the past these days.
Now y'all heard how he knew what went together to make that.
Okay, now we hadn't got to my favorite morph yet. We're still not going to get to my favorite morph yet. We're going to do that last. We're going to save that for last. Okay, so this is a Zulu. This is another simple recessive. So this morph actually affects the pattern and the color. So you see how our color is a little bit different than a normal?
Yes.
And then you see the tail pattern as well. Now watch this. Check out this little cool thing. Translucent belly scales. Every single Zulu will have translucent belly scales. Now for disclaimer, some other fat tails will have some translucent belly scales here and there, but not to the extent and not the consistency as a Zulu. Now this is a caramel, another simple recessive.
Nice.
This is a caramel and Zulu combo. And she will also have translucent belly scales. Oh, if she'll show us.
And y'all see how on that Zulu there's like an arrow, those patterns shaped kind of arrow. And the last one had the same patterns as this one, but the color combination or variation is still different, but you can still tell that it's the same one. I learned that from the last time we talked.
we had a practice session.
Yep.
This is another caramel. This is just an adult male. Hopefully he don't come flying out of here. He's kind of crazy.
Man, he's crazy, and that pattern is crazy.
Isn't that pretty? How the pattern just kind of marbles up as they get older.
That is all right.
Now that's an adult. It ain't gonna change. It ain't gonna get ugly from that. That's what he's gonna look like all his life. He's 3 years old, I think.
I don't know if I want one of them to hide in a bioactive, man.
Man, I tell you what, you want to be able to see them. That's for sure. This is a ghost morph. This is actually a morph that I just now added to my collection. I was always hesitant to get him. This is the last gene that I was missing, so this kind of completes my collection right here. This is a Tangerine Ghost. Isn't that pretty? Also another simple recessive. All right, now I'm going to show you my favorite gene of the whole species. This is Whiteout. Okay? Now, the reason that the Whiteout is my favorite of all of them is because of the variation that the genetic allows for. Also a Whiteout. This is a Tang whiteout from a special project I've been line breeding for 3 generations. Similar project, bloodline wise, but you see the variation in those 3 animals? Isn't that wild?
Man, that is off the hook. Yes, and I can see why they would be your favorite. I can.
Isn't that gorgeous? That's
can
one of
see
my
that.
favorite animals right there.
I can
Boom.
see that.
Now I'm going to show you some of the whiteout combos with all these recessives that we've been showing you. Oh, we'll show you Dude too while we're on whiteouts because he's a whiteout. He's another variation of the genetic. Look at him. Totally different, right? From those other 3.
Yeah.
But
With that
visually,
the stripe still there as a combination with the other broke up patterns.
yep, just a whiteout and the stripe is all he's got going on visually. But he's a tangy whiteout, so that's why he's got all that background noise going on, as opposed to these whiter background girls. Now we'll get to the combo morphs with the whiteout. So this is a whiteout patty combo.
Okay, which make the patternless bold.
It breaks the pattern up because what the whiteout does is it gives you a lighter background and it breaks your pattern up. So the whiteout patty still has the patternless effect because the banding covers the whole body, but it's broke up by the whiteout gene.
Gotcha.
And then this is a whiteout ghost, and he's also what you would call an aberrant whiteout ghost because his band is broken like that, his back band. And then this is probably one of my favorites, whiteout Amel. Isn't that awesome?
Like candy.
Yes, sir. And then whiteout caramel. And whiteout Oreo.
Man, that whiteout Oreo is
Whiteout
lovely.
Oreos are very, very popular.
I can see it. I can see it.
That contrast just blows people away for sure.
I still like the combination. You know, I'm more of that wilder.
Yep.
But with the whiteout background. But yeah, that one right there though, I can dig that. I can understand.
But that's what I got to show y'all today, man.
Ready. Okay. Y'all see them. Y'all see them. Y'all see them, man. Hey, you can't beat them. I don't think so. That's me. That's my own personal feelings talking.
I'm in love with them, man. Every time I open their tubs, I'm like, are you serious? Is this really going on? Is this really what I get to do every day?
So is that your shirt?
Almost every day.
Is that your shirt? Is that your design?
No, it's not. This is just one that I got off. My wife got me that online somewhere.
Okay.
Isn't that pretty though?
Yeah, very.
That's a whiteout patternless.
Gotcha.
Could be a whiteout Oreo patternless technically, but
okay. It's off the hook, man.
No, my shirt is that one I showed you a minute ago. This is what our shirt looks like. It's just plain Jane in the front. It's just got our logo embroidered on it. And then the back is our little motto.
Geckos and HUff's Herps. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get me one of them too. I need to start collecting these shirts, man, so I can on every stream I can do like this.
Another order. What size you wear, Hank?
Let me see. What do I wear now? I'm a 2X.
Like
no, the reason I said that, I'm actually a 2X now. What size you need
for them guns is what I should have said.
I'm a 2X. I'm a 2X now. I used to be 4X, man.
Really? Congratulations.
Yeah, man. my late 20s and my early 30s, I was a big boy.
Really?
We're talking about big. Yeah, I was a big boy, man.
So what's your favorite, Hank, out of all the morphs I showed you? You still like the normals the most?
Yes. Look, yes, but the combos of let's say like the Tangerine Whiteout.
Those are that's my favoriteest, man. That's my favorite. That I've been working that project right there that I showed you. I call that my mango project.
Okay.
And it's actually we have time. I'm gonna actually tell you the story on that. It's a really cool story how that project started. But I call that my mango project, and it's basically just a line bred group of tangerines that I'm selectively breeding for that coloration, for that tangerine whiteout, look. But real quick, the story on that, the reason it's called Mango Project is because the originating female for that project is named Mango. And the way I got her was a total accident. I bought an Oreo from somebody that was getting out of the business, and about 2 weeks after I received that gecko, she laid a clutch of eggs.
Mm.
And so I put them incubating, and one of them went bad, and one of them was good. So I reached out to the person. I said, "Hey, she laid the eggs. What was she paired to, so I can know the genetics behind the one that's good?" They said, "Well, she was paired to a Whiteout Patternless head Oreo." So I said, "All right." So I hatched a single baby, and she was a pretty unassuming looking whiteout. But as she grew, she had a lot of tangy background, kind of like Dude that I showed you here. Actually, Mango is Dude's mom.
Okay.
Interestingly
Okay.
enough. So Mango looks similar to Dude, not quite as pretty as Dude, and her stripe isn't as broad as his. But anyway, so I got her by accident, total accident, bonus gecko, right? Fast forward a couple years, now she's mature, and I have a gecko in line for her that she's supposed to go to. Well, that gecko, after he was paired to his first female of the year, he decided that that's all he wanted that year, and he was not interested in anything else. So I've got this female here that, and this was several years ago. My collection was much smaller, and I only had a handful of males to choose from. We've got this female here who's ovulating, ready to go, like nibbling at the male, raising her tail, just please, 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 and he's not interested. So I'm like, okay, well, I have this group of A-males, and I'd like to put the whiteout gene into my A-male line and work the whiteout A-male out, which, like I told you earlier, was one of my favorite visuals that I showed you. That was my original goal with that project, was with that pairing, was to get the whiteout into my A-male stuff so that I could create some whiteout head A-males and eventually produce whiteout A-males. So that pairing produced 4 of the most incredible looking geckos that I've ever seen. 3 of them specifically, just they had so much unique qualities to them. They were all whiteouts, those 4 animals, and they all had a lot of tanginess to them that came in from that A-male, and plus the original Mango had a lot of tang to her. So it created some very tangerine looking whiteouts. And so the results were so good that year that the next year, even though I had another male that I could have put her to, she went to a better tangerine A-male, which wasn't in her genetic play cards at all, right? She's a whiteout het Oreo het patty, and I'm putting her to an A-male male. And none of them work against each other, but they just, not really, at the time, wasn't really a project that a lot of people were putting those 3 genes together. Well, that second pairing produced, still to this date, one of the prettiest geckos I've ever produced. Her name's Skittles. She's a tangerine whiteout, and I'll send you a picture on Messenger, Hank. She's just amazing. She is so, still, even after she's ovulated and kind of what I call rusted out, they kind of have a peak at about, a year or so, and then their colors just kind of fade a little bit, and then they plateau at whatever they're going to look like for the rest of their life. But she's just so gorgeous. And so that was kind of the spawn of that project. And then I was actually able to acquire the original male that the original gecko was paired to. I tracked down who ended up with him, because those people had got out, right? I tracked down who had him, and then at one point she was downsizing, and I was able to acquire that male back. So I have the foundation male that produced this whole project back in my possession now. So what you got going on there? Your tank's burping on you?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. You hear it?
I see it. I see it bubbling. So I actually was able to acquire that male back in my possession. So that project is kind of a work in progress. I'm about 3 generations in right now, and I'm really, really happy with the results, and people are really happy with the animals they're getting from that project. And yeah, who knows where it's going to end up. That's my favorite thing about the fat tails is that if you really think about it, they are kind of in their infancy as far as the hobby goes. If you compare them to, like, say, leopard geckos, leopard gecko morphs have been around for decades, whereas the fat tails kind of just started getting imported in like 2008, 2009. Not normal fat tails, we've had those forever, but the morphs started getting imported in like after 2005 ish. So that's only, what, a handful of generations, especially on an animal that has to grow out to about 2 years before it's breeder size. So I'm really excited about the possible potential of the species personally. I feel like there's a lot to be done with them and a lot to be learned about them. I'm learning more and more every day about them.
And if you can get them out there like people doing with these ball pythons, man.
Right?
Ooh. And today was the first time I heard the same terms, het and and I'm like, in recessive, and I'm like, oh man, he's never heard it before dealing with anything other than the ball python. I'm like, okay, the same terms still apply genetically,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Incomplete dominance. The whiteout is an incomplete dominant gene, meaning that there's a super form of it. Interesting thing about that, actually, there's a couple quick things I want to mention. The super form of the whiteout is a fatal gene, meaning the eggs. So 25, if you pair a whiteout and a whiteout, 25%, statistically 25% of the babies either will not hatch, or if they do hatch, they'll die within the first couple minutes of hatching.
Yeah.
Nobody knows why. They think it's some kind of metabolic thing with their lungs, maybe not working, once they hit air. So generally speaking, it's, most people don't do that pairing. A whiteout to a whiteout is kind of frowned upon. Additionally, caramel and ghost, 2 of the recessive genetics I showed you, to my knowledge and in my experience, the females of those 2 genes are infertile. So it makes them a little tricky to work with. You want to obviously, if you're have a pairing that's going to produce you a lot of visuals of that gene, then you want to kind of go male heavy on those, or not. I mean, a lot of people like having them for pets, and the female pets bring a lower price point to that morph, so it kind of opens the door to some people that have been wanting to keep them but couldn't maybe afford them, being able to get them and have that pretty look and just keep them as pets.
A question. The majority of people won't be breeders.
Right.
So why would the price range be lower when the people who just want pets won't know the difference as far as if they're going to
because
breed
the
them?
pricing on them is more, just like with ball pythons, the pricing is priced on the breeder market.
Okay.
So just the fact that they're infertile brings the price, cuts the price in half basically from what a male would be of that same genetic. So, for example, like the caramel Zulu I showed you earlier, that animal right there is a female. I think I have her listed for like $375 right now. Whereas a male of that genetic, of that combo, would go for $750 to $1,000.
Gotcha. And is that pretty much across the board with all breeders? Because like in fish, it's not
It's a
stable.
weird market.
It depends on the person. Like,
yep. It's a
hey,
weird
I'm
market.
gonna sell I believe my males are more important. They're gonna sell them high. This person over there is selling females high, or you can't get them at all.
Yeah. It is a weird market. There's not a whole lot of people working with them. In all honesty, my geckos are kind of on the higher end in the market. I'm okay with that. I put a lot into my geckos, and people are always really happy with the animals they get from me. I start them out on dubia and introduce mealworms to them, so they're a lot more versatile feeder. Generally speaking, some of them will still insist on crickets later on in life, but if you start them on crickets, they're pretty much going to be hooked on crickets all their life. So I try to start them on other bugs. That way they're a little bit more user friendly, plug and play for the people that get them. And we handle our geckos a lot. Most of our geckos are very tame. I've only got a couple, and I can point them out to you that are, that I would prefer to sell to somebody as a breeder because it's a gecko that just doesn't like to be handled, or to somebody that just wants them as a display animal and doesn't want to handle it. I always assess the situation anytime I'm talking to somebody, be it online or at an expo. What are you looking for? What are you looking to get out of this? Are you wanting an animal that you can take out and hold regularly? Are you wanting an animal just to look at? Or do you not care? Some people don't care. They just want it,
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, because I don't know. I guess I would be in between at this point because I haven't experienced it yet.
Oh, once you hold them, you're going to want to be able to hold them.
Because like my frog, I sneak in on him, in the middle of the night. He's going to be out, and I look at him. But I never touch him, I never take him out.
Right.
Spray down, in the morning, shoot crickets in, but I never touch him. I just look.
Well, if you already got crickets for your frog, then you're already a step ahead of the game for fat tails.
Yeah, I keep him cricket down. Man. African fat tails.
We love
y'all
them.
Hear it.
We love them.
Y'all hear it and you seen them.
I think they're getting a lot more popular. I think they're kind of blowing up right now.
Already. Hey, you're the first one, man, with the show and tell. You know what I'm saying? You're the first one with the show and tell. We're gonna have to go on. We're gonna have to keep going with that. That show and tell that needs to be a regular occurrence. Regular occurrence, man. And brother, we're gonna have to go ahead and take it on out. Pre-record. I'm at 56 minutes. You will be back once I get this nailed down, and
you're gonna be here. When you coming here? When's that happening? Coming in the summertime?
Summertime, probably. Vacation, vacation will be done built up a little bit. Me and the wife can burn on out. Yeah. Come see what y'all got going on so I can get me one of them.
Let me know. Let me know when you want to come. I'm gonna cook for you. I like to throw it down, man. I cook a mean rice and gravy. We can boil some crawfish if the time's right. Whatever you want to do.
I eat. I believe it. Plug, any social medias you got? Plug them.
Yes. I want to give a shout out to one of my best friends in the hobby, Heidi Nielsen at Gecko Morphs. Y'all go check her out. She's got some of the sickest leopard geckos around. And a couple of my other friends, South Tex Gex, Carl Vargas, and Brian Lovins at Lovins Reptiles. Y'all go check them out. They got some good stuff.
Send me a link or so to all your people.
For sure. And of course, Huff's Herps at yahoo.com if you're trying to email me. And Huff's Herps on Instagram and Huff's Herps on Facebook. I'm easy to find. Just type it in, Huff's Herps. I'll come up.
Already. Hey, y'all watching this stream. I want to thank you. Give it a chance. My fish people. I keep saying to you, I love you. I'm not gone. This is just a second show. Big Tank Hank, not Big Tank Hank's Aquatics. I have more than just fish, and I like more than just fish. If you name it, I probably had it in some type of enclosure. Y'all take care of the animals you got. Tell somebody that you love them. Catch us on the next one. Love you. We out. Peace.